Good evening, and welcome to tonight's virtual Zoom informational session sponsored by Davidson-Davie Community College. Please be reminded that tonight's informational session is being broadcast on Zoom, streaming live on Facebook, and will be recorded for your convenience to review at a later date. Tonight's topic programs will be programs that we really speak highly of in the criminal justice, the law enforcement, and paralegal programs. We are really honored to have Mr. Ralph Norton, a professional and very knowledgeable individual in this area, and we're very happy to have him tonight to share information about these programs. If you have any questions, we'll be monitoring your questions through our chat box. So please just write or type in your questions that you have into your chat box. And at the conclusion of the presentation by Mr. Norton, we will respond and answer your questions. So with no further ado, I present to you Mr. Ralph Norton.
All right, thank you, William. Welcome everyone to this session. We're going to talk a little bit about the Law and Legal Division and the programs that are offered in that division. Again, my name is Ralph Norton. I'm the chair of the Law and Legal Division here at Davidson-Davie Community College. And like if you have any questions, just put them in the chat. Or at the end of each of these three sections, I'll have a slide that offers a chance to also ask any questions then, or if anybody would like for me to clarify anything. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started with the first one, which is Basic Law Enforcement Certificate Program. The Basic Law Enforcement Program is offered in a number of community colleges around the state. And essentially it's a certificate program that teaches you, the student, the basic skills, knowledge, skills, and abilities that you need for entry-level employment in a law enforcement agency in North Carolina. It is specific to North Carolina. So you couldn't take BLET in North Carolina and then go to Virginia. But in North Carolina, it is required before you can get sworn in to a police agency or a state agency. So even if you had a master's degree, you still have to take basic law enforcement training to get into employment as a police officer or a state agent or a state trooper or a county sheriff's deputy. So that's what this program is about. The program utilizes state mandated topics and methods. It is mandated by the state. It is regulated by the North Carolina Criminal Justice Education Training Standards Commission. We sometimes call it the Commission or Training and Standards. But that entity regulates all BLET courses in North Carolina. And our program is no different. So these are the types of things that you would be studying. Obviously, it's not everything, but you'll study constitutional law, criminal law, civil, traffic law, drug laws, investigative technique, patrol techniques, in custody procedures, court procedures, law enforcement driving, firearms, defensive tactics, emergency responses. You'll get CPR certified as well. You'll study about ethics and victim and community relations. Those are some broad categories. One of the things about this program that is unique, it has to be taken in person. It cannot be taken online. And that's why it's offered at different community colleges around the state to afford people an opportunity to take BLET courses around the state. So all of the course has to be online. There's no hybrid part of it or no online part. It all has to be taken in person. I'm sorry. And consequently, all absences if you miss an hour, you have to make up an hour, and then of course all the work that is done. So there are some fairly strict attendance rules and tardiness rules that we have to comply with, but it's usually not an issue with any of the students. All absences must be approved by the school director. The certified school director is the person who officially runs the program, and then we have some qualified assistants that assist with the program as well. Just continuing with the general description of our program here at Davidson, it is 660 hours long, which is 20 hours longer than the state requires. The state minimum is 640. but we offer extra hours in certain blocks of instruction that we deem that the students need more opportunities to expand their knowledge in those particular areas. It's not unusual for BLET courses around the state to offer more than is the minimum required. You just cannot offer less. Again, it's designed to give the students the essential skills to gain entry-level employment in law enforcement agencies, state, local, county level, even private enterprise. There are private police agencies and campus police agencies. To be certified law enforcement and to have arrest power, to be what we call duly sworn, you have to go through this course. We offer it in both a nighttime and a daytime course. The daytime course schedule is designed for full-time students, and we offer it twice a year. It essentially goes by the fall semester, starting in August and ends in December. And then we offer it again beginning in January and ends in June, basically following the spring semester schedule. The day class typically is Monday through Friday, usually 8 a.m. till 6 p.m., but the times will vary because we have some night training that we have to do. We typically do that on weekends, on Saturday and Sunday, a few times during the course. And the times will typically vary. Sometimes they'll get out a little early, half days. Sometimes they'll go a little longer for PT sessions till 7 o'clock. But if you go during the full-time course, it is considered full-time and it takes roughly 4 months. We offer the exact same program at night for those who still have to maintain a daytime job. And, you know, say they're looking at a career change. You're working somewhere now and you're looking at maybe a career change. You can take this course at night. We're one of the few community colleges in the area that still offers a night program. And it is basically half-time, so it takes twice as long. So we only run one of those programs a year. Runs from October typically till about June. And of course at night, it starts at 6 p.m., runs till about 10:30 p.m., Monday through Friday, with a few Saturday and Sunday sessions. Again, that affords the student the opportunity to maintain a daytime job if you had to keep working full-time and you could go to school part-time. That's how I did it 37 years ago. And I went on and did a 30-year career in law enforcement and retired a few years ago. I went at night because I had a daytime job. And we have a lot of students that have great success going at night as well. So, of course, we have great success with our students in the day class. So here at Davidson, we do offer you those options of the schedule. Some interest requirements, we'll go through these pretty quickly. Some basic requirements to get into the program. There are certain criminal background requirements. You cannot have committed a felony or been convicted of committing a felony or certain misdemeanors within the last 5 years. You have to be a citizen of the United States. You have to be at least 20 years of age to get into the program. You can get in at 19 with special permission from the school director and from training and standards, as long as you're going to turn 20 before the state exam. And that was how I got in many years ago. I was 19 when I started BLET as well. And occasionally we get a few students like that now. You just have to turn 20 before the state exam. And also realize, we also let the students know you cannot work for a sheriff's office until you're 21. But police agencies can hire you at 20. So we talk to the students ahead of time to make sure, okay, where you want to go to work, to make sure that that's not going to be an issue. The state law, you can't be a sheriff's deputy unless you're 21, but many of the police agencies will hire you at 20. You must have a high school diploma, GED. You have to take a reading comprehension test, which is required by the state, and score at least at the 10th grade level. They offer those right here on campus over at the library, so it's no problem getting you tested for that. It takes about an hour to take the test. You also have to provide a North Carolina driver's license. You do have to have a driver's license to be in our course because you'll be driving our police cars. We have 10 or 11 retired law enforcement cars that we use in our driver training and our traffic stop training. So obviously you do have to have a driver's license. And you have to maintain it through the course. You have to obtain and maintain what is called a sponsorship through the entire BLET course. You cannot get into this course without that. And we help you get that as far as we have some agencies around that are pretty good about giving sponsorships. And a sponsorship essentially is, you can think of it as like a written permission slip from a police chief or a sheriff or a state agency like the Highway Patrol that says, hey, we'd like for this person to go to BLET. When I was the chief of police at a local agency, I used to do these, but the student has to maintain that sponsorship, which essentially means they can't do anything that brings disrepute to the agency, or that police chief or sheriff may revoke that sponsorship. And if that occurred, then the person couldn't stay in the class. It's usually not an issue, but it is something that is required. It's a little bit different than other college courses. You also need to provide to the school director a medical exam. We'll give you a form, a packet that has all of this paperwork in it when you come in for an appointment. And we'll explain to you how to do all the paperwork. Basically, just go get a physical, kind of like you would have in high school if you played sports. But it is on our form. We'll give you the sponsorship forms, and we usually recommend people get a sponsorship from the agency that they want to go to work for, or that the agency's already hired. Recently, most of our students are already hired by an agency when they come to class. They'll apply to the agency will hire them and pay them to come to class. And so they take care of the sponsorship. Some of our students get hired partway through the class. The last class that graduated, every single student was already hired before they graduated. And the only two of them were in the process. They had a conditional offer that upon the state exam passing, they were going to have a job. So the jobs are out there, and most of our students have jobs before they leave, or at least are in the process. But that medical exam is part of it. Final approval to get into the program is contingent upon filling out all the information and meeting all the requirements set forth by the training standards commissions of the sheriff and the police commissions. And then the school director makes final approval on entry into the program based on those requirements. Once you get into the program, go through the program, 660 hours, you successfully complete the program and pass, you'll get credit for 19 college credit hours here at Davidson-Davie Community College to go towards your 2-year degree, which we have a lot of our students do that. We have 2 students in the BLET program right now that were getting their 2-year degree because they weren't old enough to go to BLET, and then they're going to finish it with graduating from BLET. They'll also get those 19 hours. And so they will graduate with a BLET certificate, which allows them to go out and get a job. And then also they'll finish their 2-year degree requirement, because you get 19 hours of college credit towards your 67 hours of credit here, which is a good thing. And like I said, if you go to BLET and have not gone in, worked on your 2-year degree, once you graduate, you've got those 19 hours. You can come back at any time to work on your 2-year degree here and get those credit hours. So it's not unusual to see law enforcement officers go through BLET, get those 19 credit hours, work in law enforcement a year or so, and then come back to the college and finish their 2-year degree. So it can really work both ways. We tend to recommend a person straight out of high school, if they're considering a job in law enforcement. At 18, you're not old enough to get into BLET. We tend to recommend go ahead and get your 2-year degree in criminal justice right here at the community college while you're, say, 18, 19, 20. And then when you graduate, you can come on to BLET like these students have done. And our advisor is really good, a counselor is really good at working with students like that to help them navigate that process. Also, if you choose not to get into law enforcement directly after finishing your 2-year degree, you can go on to your 4-year degree and then come back to BLET. So we see students do it different ways. Also, upon successfully passing 660 BLET hours in the course, you also have to pass what we call the POPAT, the Police Officer's Physical Abilities Test, and the state exam. So to successfully complete the course and get your certificate so that you can be hired as a sworn law enforcement officer, you have to pass all 3 of those parts. You have to pass the BLET course. Then we have a physical abilities test. There are 2 obstacle courses that you do in a certain time. You have to pass that, and then you have to pass the comprehensive state exam. Normally not a problem. Our physical fitness that we do 3 days a week gets you ready for that physical abilities test. And you'll practice it numerous times before you have to do it officially. The written exam, of course, is comprehensive over our 36 blocks of instruction, which you'll have weekly tests on to get prepared. And then we spend a week or two doing reviews to get you ready for the state exam. And sometimes we do practice exams, either written or kind of orally. But we do everything to get this that we can to get the students ready to take those tests. Once you pass and get certified, obviously there's a lot of job opportunities out there, a lot of career opportunities. As a sworn law enforcement officer here in North Carolina, police officers with a local police agency, deputy sheriff with the sheriff agency or sheriff's office, county detention. The sheriff's office each have jails, and a lot of times county detention, you can go into that and be transport officers. Campus police, a lot of the colleges and universities obviously have sworn police officers that are campus police. This gets you the basic requirement for that. Private police officers, a lot of the big corporations and even private police agencies. A lot of times you go into the hospitals, you'll see the security guards there are police officers. They're private police. Sometimes they're city police, but this gets you prepared for that and what you need to work in those agencies. Some state law enforcement agencies accept BLET, but you usually have to do some of their own training as well. Like the Highway Patrol, you would go to their short academy. Instead of going there for 8 or 9 months, you go there for 3 months. So with BLET plus that, I think they call it the short academy or the short school. You go about a half or a third of the time. Some of your larger agencies and other state agencies will do the same thing. They'll put you through a portion of their academy instead of the whole thing. So there are a lot of different options, state level, local level, private level, university level. The starting salaries are really hard to pin down because they're all over the place. The salaries for law enforcement have been coming up dramatically in the last few years. Some agencies pay you to move to their city. They'll pay you a bonus for being hired. But around in this area, the agencies in this county and the counties adjoining, most are starting off in the 38 to 40,000 range as a trainee. And some are starting as high as 50 or 54 when you go a couple of counties over in some different places. They're starting in the mid 40s and even the 50s we're hearing in some places. Depending on if you can speak a second language, military service, if you already have your degree. So some agencies pay a higher starting salary for each of those credentials. So it really just kind of depends. The basic learning objectives you'll have in BLET. Again, you're going to learn to apply the criminal laws, juvenile code, civil law, traffic law, ABC and drug law in real world factual type situations. You'll demonstrate the proficiency in your defensive tactics, first responder, driving, physical fitness, and firearms technique, and demonstrate proper criminal investigation, traffic accident investigation procedures, demonstrate effective communication interaction with victims, citizens, suspects, and special populations, and you'll demonstrate proper law enforcement control techniques. So that's a general breakdown of the blocks that you'll be covering, and those are what the college calls student learning objectives. Then as we start to finish up on the BLET, a few other little bits of information. The students must achieve a minimum score of at least 70 on each block of instruction. So we have 36 blocks of instruction, and you'll have a test on each of them. And you just have to make a 70 or higher on each of those tests, the written tests, to get credit for that block of instruction. Some of those blocks of instructions have practical exercises like firearms where you have to shoot a certain score, driving, you have 8 or 9 different courses that you have to drive within a certain score. So we do have about 10 or 12 blocks of those instructions who have not only a written requirement, but also a practical exercise requirement, which is mostly pass fail or a score. And you know, those they'll demonstrate, the instructors, which are very experienced instructors from local agencies. They'll demonstrate how to do it. They'll let you practice how to do it numerous times. Then they'll let you do it, the exercise that's required, and then they'll test you on it. And if you need some remedial, they'll give you remedial training. You know, those are usually not a problem. Those are actually the fun parts of BLT, the practical exercise. Everybody really likes the practical exercise. But you do have to pass those as well as the written. The BLT director has authority to raise or lower the required passing score as long as the state 70% minimum is maintained. At Davidson, we require the 70% as the minimum. Our students are allowed to retake no more than 3 tests. So you can actually come up a little short on the test. We give you some homework to do and the time to study, and then you retake the test. As long as you pass the written test, you continue on and get credit for it. You can do that 3 times in the course of the program. However, if a student did fail on the 4th time, they would be dismissed from the program. That's rarely occurred, doesn't happen very often. It's normally not an issue to worry about, but the state, some places allow a 5th failure, but that's it. The state puts certain requirements that we have to abide by. The students must, like I said, successfully complete and pass all 34 blocks to be able to sit for the state exam. There are some physical requirements to get ready for the POPAT, the physical abilities test. We will have 3 one-hour sessions of physical training each week for 34 sessions. And then you would take the physical abilities test. And these blocks of instruction, these 3-hour sessions of physical fitness training are absolutely necessary to be able to pass that physical aspect of the POPAT test. The instructors are very experienced, and they're essentially trainers. They're very much like trainers you might find in the gym. They have to go through extra training to be a PT instructor. And so they'll talk to you about your health, your wellness, your what you should eat, what you should. They'll have a classroom portion that's a lot on health and wellness and on your diet and water intake, things like that. And then they'll teach the physical part. And they'll also teach you how to actually achieve a passing score on the obstacle course and give you plenty of time to practice on that. So, so there are PT sessions that are involved in this. It involves some things like, you know, running, push-ups, sit-ups, burpees, up-downs, you know, to get you practicing for dragging a body, simulate dragging a body, jumping over a fence, you know, a lot of different things like that, step up. So there's some good exercise that go there. Tuition and fees, good thing about the BLT program, it does not cost your tuition because tuition is waived in North Carolina if you have a sponsorship, and nobody can get in the program without the sponsorship. So there is no tuition. I think there may be a few little fees, and then you obviously got to buy your books. But there is no tuition. Typical cost is around $1,100, $1,200. The books are about $800 or $900. There's some PT uniforms that we get here at the bookstore. Most people already have running shoes, you know, some of the other stuff that goes with the uniform. We provide a uniform. We issue uniforms for the students to wear, and we get them back at the end of the course. But your PT gear, your physical fitness training gear, you have to buy. So it ends up being about $1,100, $1,200, roughly, a little bit less, a little bit more, depending on your medical exam and some other things. But there is no tuition, that is waived. The good thing about Davidson County Community College or Davidson-Davie Community College also, since this is a curriculum program, you can qualify for financial aid and veterans benefits and go through the program utilizing those benefits if you qualify. Many of the other BLT programs are Con Ed programs, which they cannot qualify for those. So the good thing about Davidson here, another good thing about it is that you can use your financial aid or your veterans benefits to do that. Contact information, just to finish up. Ronnie Phillips is our BLT school director. His office is here in the Public Safety Building in room 124, and there has his information, his email. Like I said, I'm the division chair, Ralph Norton. I'm the alternate contact. My office is also in the Public Safety Building here in room 123. But there's my information. And our contact information for the student advisor for VLET, also the Criminal Justice and Paralegal, Brooklyn Edwards, and there's her information. But with VLET, you typically start out with us, and then Brooklyn's there also to help get things started if you need to. Any questions on the VLET program? Anybody got anything? Any questions or thoughts?
No questions so far.
I went through it fairly quickly. It sounds like a lot of stuff in the VLET program that you have to do, but that packet that I talked about, every bit of that I talked in there, most people can get it done in less than a week. There's some paperwork you have to fill out, some things that you have to do, but most people can get everything to get into the program in about a week or two. So it doesn't take long to get everything that you need to get ready to get into the program.
I do see one question I wanted to ask you. With your ammunition and your firearms, is that provided, or are the students responsible for purchasing these items?
Excellent question. Excellent question. No, the student doesn't have to provide anything. The fees, the little fee, I think they pay $25 fee, or they used to, I think was the college fee. But no, they don't have to provide anything. We provide the cars for them to drive, the radios for them to practice communication, the firearms, the ammunition. They'll shoot over 1,000 rounds of 9mm ammunition during a whole week of firearms training, where they'll have combat training, the day and night qualification, shotgun. We provide the shotguns. At some point in the near future, we're probably going to add the patrol rifle because a lot of agencies want that. But right now, we do the shotgun and the pistols. We provide all of that. We provide the patrol cars for them to drive. There's really nothing beyond that $1,100 that they have there that really they have to provide. The college has everything that we provide for them, including the holsters, the duty gear, the uniforms that they wear that look like police uniforms. And so we take care of all of that here at the college. Good question.
I just saw another one. Is a psychological exam required?
We do not do the psychological. The agencies that do the hiring in their process would typically do that. To get in here to the college, basically that's what we talk about. They'll fill out a form. They have to get the criminal records from the counties that they lived in. Just go to the clerk's office, pay $25, get a criminal record. The background that the agencies will do will be much more detailed than our backgrounds. We make sure they have the minimum requirements to get into the course. The agencies, when they're processing you, will do a more detailed and thorough background. And most of them do a version of the psychological exam. And when they do that, the agencies pay for all of that. Yeah, when you go to apply to an agency, the agencies will pay for, if they send you to go get a physical, go get a psych exam, anything like that, the drug testing that they do, the background they do, they pay for all of that. The candidate does not have to pay for anything.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, if there's no more questions, we'll move on to the criminal justice program.
No more questions, and we do have someone in the chat that is particularly interested in criminal justice.
Oh, okay, great. The criminal justice program is an associate degree program. It takes 67 hours of credit to graduate from the program, and obviously designed to give basic knowledge in the criminal justice system and operations. As opposed to a criminology degree, criminal justice is going to talk about it'll talk a little bit about what causes crime, some of the theories, but it's really going to talk about how to address crime. Some people say, what's the difference between criminology and criminal justice? Criminology talks a lot about the causes of crime. Criminal justice talks about kind of how to address it. But it does touch a little bit on the cause as well. So it's an applied science. So you're talking about a lot of what you'll learn in the criminal justice 2-year program. Theoretically, you could apply in the field if you went into a law enforcement related field. We'll focus typically on local and state federal law enforcement and judicial processes, corrections, security services, and the criminal justice system's role in society in general, and also how it's changed. There's a lot of history in this class, in this program. The criminal justice system is always evolving to meet the needs of society and to try to better serve society. So obviously it'll address a lot of those issues. The emphasis is on the criminal justice systems. Again, we study some criminology, juvenile justice, criminal constitutional law, investigative principles, ethics, community relations, and a lot of other topics related to government communications. And then, of course, your general ed requirements, some of your math and your science as part of it as well. Where this is different than the basic law enforcement program, the BLET we just talked about. With BLET, we talk about some of these topics as well, but we barely hit the surface on but in criminal justice degree program, we go into much more detail. Like we'll have a whole semester class on constitutional law in the criminal justice program, but it's 28 hours in the BLET program. Cover some of the same stuff, but the criminal justice degree program is in much more detail from a scholarly or academic standpoint. In BLET, it's more on a practical standpoint. How can I legally search this car without violating somebody's rights? Whereas in the 2-year degree program, we'll study that as well, typically, but also much more detail in the constitutional part of it. So there is some crossover between the two. That's what the criminal justice program is for. Again, college credit hours that are earned in various different ways can come in to give you advanced standing in the program. Like I said, if you went to BLET first and got those 19 hours of college credit, that's going to come in and it takes up, I think, 4 or 5 different courses that you don't have to take, but you get credit for. So that's a good thing if you already have BLET. If you're in high school and did the CCP program, you probably had about 18 hours of college credit that you got then that goes towards that 67 hours. Sometimes early college or other college transfer may come in that would have to be approved, but there are ways to have some college credit when you come into this program, depending on your past educational experience. The program outcomes, again, the student outcomes, upon successful completion of this program, the student should be able to demonstrate a working knowledge of the 4 components of the criminal justice system and their histories. They'll talk about the critical thinking and problem solving, use critical thinking and problem solving to apply effective and efficient techniques to policing, investigations, ethical dilemmas, constitutional applications, and administration of justice. Again, you're going to have courses on ethics and community relations, criminal investigation courses with labs on how to process crime scenes. I'm obviously going to study constitutional law and criminal law, the elements of criminal law and different types of things like that. And also, it's going to talk about the different parts of the criminal justice system. Obviously, the police or law enforcement is the most obvious part of that, of the 4 major components. But you also have corrections, which will be probation, parole, the prison systems. You also have juvenile law, which is separate from adult law. And then, of course, you have the court system itself. What happens when they go to court. So those are the major things that we study. And then we look at the difference between federal and state law, some case law, and other things as it relates to the criminal justice system. Here are the types of programs that are offered. Like I said, the main one being the actual associate degree, the 67 hours. If you wanted a concentration in a certain area, like you want a little bit more emphasis on corrections, maybe you're a little bit more interested in corrections, there are certain courses that they would get you to take, which would be 12 hours. The criminal justice technology, again, if you want more emphasis on the investigative parts, maybe you're more interested in criminal investigation, then you might want a certificate to go along with your degree that emphasizes investigative principles. Similarly, for criminal justice technology, the high school, the CCP, you're going to get 18 hours anyway. So there are, like I said, the degree, and then you can have a specialty within that degree if you take certain classes. And that doesn't necessarily mean 67 hours plus 12, 67 plus 16. It just means that and you're going to take certain courses to make
Everyone
sure you
please be
get
quiet.
the right.
Just a minute.
Sorry about that. Ralph, can you unmute yourself and continue? I apologize.
I don't know how I got muted. How long was I muted there?
Just shortly. So right when you move to this slide.
Oh. Okay, we'll get back where I'm at. That slide there?
Yes, you were wrapping up that slide.
Oh, okay. I don't know what happened. It went to mute. But anyway, those are some of the options that you have for concentrations in that program. Like I said, the good thing about the associate degree program, you have some options. You can, once you graduate from the associate degree program, if you're interested in sworn law enforcement, then you would go to BLET like we just talked about. If you're interested in going on to get your bachelor's degree somewhere, then we have some partner institutions that we have transfer agreements with, and we're constantly trying to add more groups. As a matter of fact, I talked to a university today about adding them as a pathway to go on to your bachelor's degree and get credit for all of your 2-year degree. We're even looking at one university to do a 3+1, that you could actually do 3 years here and do 1 year at the university and finish your bachelor's degree. So we're constantly looking at opportunities for students to have opportunities to transfer to other 4-year institutions seamlessly and get complete credit. So if you want to go the bachelor's degree route, that's the way you would go and get further education. If you want to go ahead into the work world and seek employment using your bachelor's degree, there are some options out there for that as well, using your associate degree. There's some opportunities at local and state typically. Again, county detention officer, you don't have to have BLET to be a detention officer at the jail or a correction officer in the prisons. And they'll pay typically a little bit more if you have an associate degree, and then they do their training in-house. Loss prevention specialists, a lot of agencies, a lot of stores and businesses have loss prevention officers. And for the most part, most of them are going to start out with an associate degree. Evidence custodians, again, when I was assistant chief and chief at the police department, we had to hire evidence custodians, and they didn't have to be sworn. So you don't always have to carry a gun and badge to work in the criminal justice field. And the associate degree is the best place to start to get that education that you need to be able to apply and help your resume look better for some of these jobs. You know, everybody thinks about CSI. We call them evidence technicians, but crime scene technicians. And a lot of your larger departments, they're civilians. They're not sworn police officers, but they have an associate degree. Some go and have their bachelor's degree in some type of forensics. We have some universities and colleges around here that have that bachelor's degree as well. So those are some jobs you can have, and you don't have to be a sworn police officer carrying a gun and a badge. Records clerks, law enforcement agencies all have records clerks or people that work in the office, administrative professionals that do that. So again, there's lots of civilian-oriented type jobs out there related to that. Then, of course, you have the sworn jobs as well, but you're going to have to go through BLET in addition. Most agencies now, even if you're in a sworn law enforcement agency, you can't move to certain ranks without having a degree. Most agencies, a lot of the bigger ones, you can't be a sergeant without having an associate degree. You can't be a captain without having a bachelor's degree. I know when I was chief, we instituted and expanded that. I know in our agency, you can't be a sergeant unless you have an associate degree. Trying to push the formal education. You can't be a captain unless you have a bachelor's degree. So a lot of officers are going back, and I tell hey, when you're just getting into it now, go and get your education. It'll pay dividends for you pretty quickly and in the future, long term. Almost all of our instructors that teach in the BLET program also have degrees. Most of them do. I'd say probably 60, 70% of them have an associate, bachelor, even master's level that teach in our basic law enforcement training. Obviously, all of our professors that teach in this program all have master's degrees or higher. And The starting salaries will vary as a civilian, again, in the high 20s, low 30s, typically in the low 30s for civilians to high 30,000. And then if you're sworn, it's going to be a little bit more typically. All right, there's the contact information for me, Ralph Norton, the division chair, and also Brooklyn Edwards is our advisor. You'll work much more closely with her when it comes to the pathways of what courses to take and different things like that with this two-year degree program. Any questions on the criminal justice program?
We did have a question about the length of classes. Are they 8-week classes for course length for the program?
Again, a very good question. There's a mixture. Here at Davidson, we offer 8-week courses for most of those classes. Most of those courses that you take will be 8-week. I think there might be one, I'm trying to remember, in the criminal justice program. I think they're all 8-week. There might be just one that's 16. But I think they are all 8-week. And you can also get this degree online or in person or a combination. So unlike BLET, which you had to take face-to-face, there was no hybrid and no online. The criminal justice degree program, you can take it all online. You can come in and do some seated and some hybrid and online combinations. So you have a lot of different ways to take this program. But yes, I think all the courses are 8-week.
I'm the one who asked that question, and I know that most of them say that they're 3 credit hours, but I think that there's one that has 4 credit hours, and that might be the one that's the full 16 weeks.
Right, they're because it has a lab.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the one that has a lab, and I think they have run it as 16 weeks because it's just easier with all the stuff you have to do in the lab week. That's why I was thinking there might be 1 or 2 that's 16 weeks, and that's because of the lab.
Since they are mostly 8 weeks, would that affect how long it would take to finish the degree?
It's still typically going to take you 2 years if you go full time, because with the 8 weeks, you can't take but so many hours in that 8 weeks, so many classes. I think it's 10 without approval from me. And your advisor, Brooklyn, Mike, can jump in on this if she wants to. But typically, you're not going to get out any shorter than 2 years unless you take some courses in the summer and you're allowed to do an overload where you can take more than 10 hours in an 8-week period. So whereas normally you might take an 18 or 20-hour course load on a traditional 16-week program, you're still going to take that 20 hours. It's just split up over 2 8-week sessions. One session may have 9 or 10 hours. The next session may have 11 or 12 with approval. So you don't normally get out any quicker than in a 16-week program. It just helps the courses go a little quicker pace at 8 weeks as opposed to 16 weeks. But it doesn't really get you out any faster unless you take numerous courses in the summer, like with any other program, you get out a little quicker.
All right. Well, thank you.
Oh, yes, anytime. And like I said, if you have further questions, you got my name and number and my email. Feel free. If you think of something later, give me a call anytime or shoot me an email. I'd be glad to answer your questions in further detail.
All right.
All right.
Ralph, I just wanted to say thank you. You answered one of the questions. I was speaking with a student earlier today about being a correctional officer. We were talking about at the federal level because we heard about the lockdowns of all federal prisons, how they're understaffed. And his question was, if he obtained his criminal justice degree, did I think that he could maybe start at a higher level as a sergeant or lieutenant? So you answered that question. So I'm hoping he's joining us tonight to be able to hear your response. So thank you.
He may not be able to start that way, but once he's been there a certain number of years and experience, he can get there in a lot of agencies. I'm not specifically sure about the federal prison system, but I know most agencies have gone to, you can't achieve a certain rank without a certain degree level, right? You may not be able to start that, but now a lot of agencies are also paying you for that degree. And then since you got the degree, you're getting paid 5% more or 2.5% more on hiring. Then it makes you in 3 years eligibly as sergeant, when if another person didn't have their degree, they can't be eligible for sergeant. Also for instructors, like when you want to be an instructor, like people that teach in our BLET program and our advanced law enforcement programs, normally you can't become a criminal justice instructor in North Carolina until you have a minimum 6 years experience. But if you have a degree, 4 years. So it even shortens up, depending on what degree you have, how much experience you have to be able to qualify to be an instructor or to be promoted. Some of them, even to be in the detective division, you have to have a degree. So every agency is a little different. But yeah, no, you're exactly right. It does nothing but help in a career, every degree that you can get.
Thank you.
Good point. Great point.
I have another
Yep.
question.
Uh-huh.
I'm looking to work in the clerk's office once I get my degree. Do you know if they'd pay me more if I did have the degree? Because I know you only have to have a high school education to work there.
I'm not sure. You would have to check with the individual clerk's offices in each county because they would have different rules. The state would have different rules. But yeah, criminal justice degree would be good for the clerks. You know, even paralegal, if you were, thinking, well, okay, well, we're going to talk about the paralegal program in a minute. Paralegal or criminal justice, either one would be fine. I can't say specifically for the clerk's offices. You would have to check with them on how that is, if they pay more for it. But it also, even if they don't pay specifically more for it, it looks better on your resume to have the degree in criminal justice, paralegal, in an associate degree in something, just to be honest with you. But that would be related to the field, so that would be great as well. Also, if you go on and get your bachelor's degree, my niece did that a couple of years ago. She got her associate degree in criminal justice at community college, and then went on to Appalachian, got her bachelor's degree, and she works for probation parole. So probation parole, you typically have to have a bachelor's degree to work for them. But a lot of them start out with their associate degree in criminal justice and then go on and get their bachelor's degree too. So some of these state jobs, you have to have certain levels of degree to even apply. But certainly that helps your resume, and in some places it may include a pay raise or making a little bit more money. But I would just ask them. I would just ask them directly. But it's certainly going to help your. I would think certainly help your resume.
Well, that's what my pastor said. He works in the sheriff's office in Davidson County, and that's where I'm looking to work once I graduate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
And he's
That's great. We'd love for you to stay local.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he couldn't give me a solid answer either. So I guess I'll just figure out once I get there. But thank you.
And you can probably call the clerk's office and talk to somebody, because clerk, of course, an elected official. And so they have to follow the rules of the state on the pay and all of that. But it is something that somebody at the clerk's office might could tell you, or it's just not something that I know off the top of my head. Sorry.
It's all right.
All right. Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we are rolling right along and we are closing in on time. So I want to make sure that we can get to paralegal. So if you do have questions, if you want to direct those to the chat, Brooklyn Edwards, who's the advisor, can also answer those as Mr. Norton moves on to the paralegal section.
Thank you. All right. Good questions. Good interest. The paralegal section, a little bit shorter, won't take nearly as long. The paralegal section, it's a 66-hour credit course. It is designed to prepare people to work under the supervision of an attorney by performing routine legal tasks, assisting with substantive legal work. The paralegal, sometimes they'll also be called legal assistants, and they cannot practice law. They can't give legal advice because they don't have that level of training. But they represent, and they cannot represent clients in a court of law. They assist, like I said, that's literally what they are. They assist the attorney with legal issues. They spend some time in the clerk's office, obviously, the Register of Deeds office, checking and preparing paperwork, preparing legal papers. There's a lot of things a paralegal does to assist the attorney. The coursework includes studying substantive and procedural law, legal knowledge, to develop their legal knowledge in areas of civil litigation. Obviously, legal research, writing, in areas such as real estate, family law, wills, estates, trusts, commercial law, civil law. So these courses will cover a wide variety of types of law. The required courses also include subjects such as English, math, obviously your general ed things. Special notice, this is something that's relatively new to the paralegal program. It used to be that it was seated only, that you had to take it face to face, and you could do some online, but there were certain courses you had to take. So we called it a seated class. We've opened it up now to an online. You can get it totally online. The only difference, if you go totally online, you cannot sit for the paralegal state exam after you graduate, because you have to take 3 courses in person or hybrid, so that you have a seated portion to go to the courthouse. So that's normally not a problem for the students that live in the area. But say if you're out of state, you can take it here online, or if you live real far away, you can take it online. You just can't sit for that state test. The good thing about that, you do not have to have that state exam to practice as a paralegal. So a person in Virginia could take this course and be paralegal. You don't have to, or I say Virginia, in some states, they don't necessarily have to have a bar exam for each state for paralegals. It's a little bit different than lawyers. So that's normally not an issue for any of the students that are local, because it is a good idea to sit for that exam. Because if you sit for that exam after you get your degree and pass it, again, it looks great on the resume. A lot of attorneys like that, but it's not legally required for you to take that exam to work as a paralegal or legal assistant. Your 2-year degree kind of takes care of that, but taking that state exam just is better for it. And we recommend that you do that if at all possible. But if you have to take it all online, no problem taking it online. It's just you wouldn't be able to sit for that exam, because those 3 courses that you see there are the ones that we typically offer for in person or synchronous live, and there's some things that you have to do. But again, you can still become a paralegal without taking that exam to stop the clock. And as Brooklyn is processing you in as a counselor, she'll talk to you about this ahead of time, so we make sure that you're on the right program for any students that are looking at it that way. Paralegal technology program offerings, again, the associate degree, 66 hours. And during those 66 hours, if you want to concentrate on civil litigation, then you'll take certain courses to make sure that you have that concentration. If that's the type of attorney you're wanting to go to work for, work with, or real estate. If you want to work in real estate profession with an attorney or an agency, then you can concentrate in that. And then, of course, the high school career college promise, you're going to get 17 hours that you're going to come into the program. Once you graduate high school, you should already have those 17 of the 66 hours. So, and of course, the high school programs, those are all free. Those don't cost any tuition either during the high school program. You can also bring credit in, like I said, from that high school program, 17 hours. Maybe you took some other college credit that you can bring from another community college or something. But all of that's determined on a case-by-case basis. The program outcomes, the key things that they want you to come away with when you graduate from this program, the ability to communicate effectively by listening, speaking, and writing. Writing clearly is an important thing on this because you're preparing a lot of documents for the attorney or the other business that you may be working for. Identify and analyze, research and evaluate legal issues. So again, being able to take a critical eye to look at situations and to evaluate the legal issues involved. And that obviously takes a bit of analysis, and you'll be taught how to do that in the course of the program. Also, to develop professional skills to work effectively at the entry level as a paralegal. Those are the main program outcomes. Again, graduates are trained to assist attorneys in things like probate work, investigations, public records search or research, drafting and filing legal documents, research and office management, employment opportunities, private law firms, obviously, government agencies. I know the city, our city clerk, and we have a paralegal that works with our city attorney. Most of them do have at least one paralegal that works in government agencies with their attorneys. In the bigger agency, the bigger the city, the bigger the county, obviously the state, you may have multiple paralegals. Banks sometimes have paralegals, insurance agencies, and other business organizations. So there are some opportunities out there. It is a growing field. Some research that we did on it recently show that the paralegal field is a growing field. There are a lot of opportunities out there and forecast to continue to grow. Again, some opportunities may exist as paralegals, legal assistant, law associate, legal analyst, corporate law assistant, title examiner, claims adjuster. They sometimes have different titles, but a lot of them have that paralegal training that went before that. Starting salaries, again, are going to vary depending on where it is, what company it is. It could vary widely depending on what that is. And some people use the paralegal to go on and get their bachelor's degree so they can teach in paralegal. One of the things interesting about the paralegal program, you get an associate degree in paralegal, you get a bachelor's degree in something else, because there's typically not a bachelor's degree in paralegal. But then oftentimes you can come back with some experience and be able to teach in a paralegal program if you have a bachelor's in something else, like business administration, criminal justice, something like that. But also, some people take paralegal and go get their bachelor's degree in criminal justice and then go on to law school. You'll see that career path sometimes. So that's some opportunities that way as well. Again, contact information, I'm the chair over that program as well, and Brooklyn is the student advisor for that program as well. All right, any questions for paralegal?
Okay, I'm hoping that
Anybody
we have
what?
questions answered. No, I was just hoping we have all the questions answered. I know Brooklyn has been answering the questions in the chat, but once again, if you do see or have any additional questions, I see a question here. Brooklyn, do you want to answer that one? Okay, that's right, Brooklyn. Brooklyn has asked that question. But again, I know we are pressed for time. I'm not going to take time to share my screen, but just wanted anyone who may be interested in applying for admissions into Davidson-Davie Community College. It's not a difficult process at all. You can just go to our website, www.davidsondavie.edu. Then you go to the admissions tab, and then there'll be another tab for you to hit to how to apply. It's a very simple process, but again, we are all here to assist you with that process. If you're looking to enroll at Davidson-Davie Community College and major in criminal justice, law enforcement, or the paralegal programs, we'd love to have you. As you've seen tonight, we want to thank Ralph and want to thank Brooklyn for being available, for clarifying and telling us information about the program, letting us know the career pathways that are out there, letting us know about the job opportunities that are growing in this industry right here. So again, if you do have any additional type of questions, please feel free to contact our college. You have the contact information for Ralph. You have the contact information for Brooklyn, who's our advisor. My information is available as well. Please feel free to stop by the admissions office in Mendenhall on the campus of Davidson-Davie Community College in Thomasville, North Carolina. We once again would like to thank you for joining us for this great presentation tonight from Ralph and from Brooklyn, and look forward to